In the last section, we started talking about some of the theory around linked lists. In this section, we're going to immediately start diving into our own custom implementation of one. So inside my code editor, I'm going to find my linked list directory. Now, up to this point, we've attacked every single question in every folder of this directory or of our project in the same fashion. We've always opened up the index.js file and then started tests running for test.js. But this particular assignment right here, this particular problem is going to be quite large. So it is structured a little bit differently from some of the other problems that we have worked on. Let's first open up the index.js file. Inside of here, you're going to see some very brief directions. And notice that it essentially says, see the directions document. So also inside that linked list folder, you'll notice a HTML document called directions.html. Let's open up this document right here inside of our browser and see what exactly is inside of it. So there's a couple different ways you can open up that HTML document. I'm going to open up my File Explorer. I'm going to find the linked list directory. Here it is. And then I'll just double click the directions HTML file to open it up. Okay, so this is a document that contains all the different methods that we are going to implement on two different classes. The first class is the node class. This is going to be a JavaScript class that is meant to kind of simulate the behavior of a node in a linked list. The second class we're going to work on is going to be the linked list class, and this is going to act as a linked list would. Now the node class is going to have very little functionality associated with it. In general, the vast majority of code that we are going to write will be all revolving around the linked list. Notice how beneath either header here, we have a table that describes some of the different things that we need to work on. Now the order of functions that are listed in here is the order in which we are going to implement them throughout this example. So we're first going to start off with the constructor function, and then a function called insert first, and then size, get first, and so on, going all down this list. Every single function that's listed tells you the arguments that you should assume that function will be called with, the different type of data that the function should return, then some directions about that function and what it's supposed to do, and then finally on the right-hand side there's a quick code snippet illustrating exactly what that function is supposed to achieve. We're going to come back to this document in just a little bit, but before we do, there's one other quick thing I want to show you that is very special about this particular exercise that we're going to work on. So back inside the linked list directory, I'm going to find the test.js file. Up to this point, we have mostly ignored our test files, but for this one, the behavior of this thing is just a little bit different. So inside the test.js file, you can scroll through this and you're going to see that there are many, many tests associated with this linked list. So rather than running all these tests at once, I have specifically disabled all but two to be executed by default. So only these first two tests right here are going to run by default. As we work through the list of functions in the document that we were just looking at, we're going to come into this test.js file and start to enable some of the different tests. We can enable a test by finding the word describe. So here's describe right here. And then immediately after it, you're going to see .skip. So this .skip right here, I bet you can guess what it does. .skip means don't run this test. So if I wanted to enable the tests for testing a node, I can highlight .skip right here and then simply delete it. So I should see just describe and then open parentheses. So I'm now going to save this test.js file. So do make sure you delete that .skip right there for the first describe. And then we'll start the tests up inside of our terminal. So over at the terminal, just like we did previously, we will run just linked list / test.js -- watch. Now when we run this, we're going to see a bunch of output here, specifically saying that we are skipping many tests. And so this is exactly why I set up the test file to skip a whole bunch of tests by default. Because if we ran all 23 of those tests, you would just see all those failure messages and it would be really tough to figure out exactly why anything was failing. So instead, we're going to work on one specific function at a time. And in general, we will enable one group of tests at a time, get those tests to pass, and then move on to the next set. So right now, we just enabled a test around testing a node instance. And you can see that right now that test is failing, so we need to go and write some code to make it pass. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an overview of some of the setup that we had to go through for this linked list exercise. Let's take a break right now. We're going to continue in the next section, and we're going to start to tackle the first part of this implementation, which is to build out that node class. So quick break, and we'll start that up in the next video.